I come from the Ivory Coast. It's a country in West Africa, sub-Saharan. And we got our independence in 1960 from France. So we have a strong French cultural background, and our ties with France is still strong. As a matter of fact, it is the first trade partner. In 1960, the choice of the country was economic liberalism. When some other countries went with Soviet Union, I'm thinking about a country like Guinea-Conakry or Mali, they went on the left side, and we were the country on the right side. And we experienced a tremendous economic growth from 1960 to 1985. If you look at the Fraser Institute, between 1980 and 1985, we were in the green zone. So the freedom of economic freedom was already strong at that time. And during that time, the standard of development were very high in the country. We were ahead many countries, especially countries in the Southeast Asia, who are today champions. And Ivory Coast was a champion. It was already an emerging country in 1985, when we were not mentioning emerging countries at the time. And I remember in 1985, the government aim was to reach the level of a country like Portugal in Europe. It tells you how successful the country was. Unfortunately, the development was mainly based on export of raw products. We were and we are still the #1 exporter of cocoa. So almost 40% of the world cocoa comes from Ivory Coast. When you eat a chocolate bar, you have a strong chance to have a taste of Ivory Coast. and we exported coffee, bananas, pineapples, but you can't base development only on export of raw materials. We started an industrialization in '85. We had a company like Renault car assembly in the country, Panasonic lines, and many others. Unfortunately, between '85 and '90, the Ivorians were expecting the president who was in power since 1960 to resign and hand over power to a younger generation, which did not happen. And because he stayed too long, investment stopped. Everybody was waiting for what was going on after him, and he died only in 1993. It was starting in '94 that the development process resume and start again. So during the aging years of the old man, the development process stopped, no investment, and the competitiveness of the country decreased. If you look at the Fraser Institute today, we are in the red zone, still today. So from '85 till now, we didn't really turn things around, even though I will tell about some success story. But in 1999, we had a coup d'etat, election in 2000, a new president, but in 2002, we enter a civil war between 2002 and 2010, with post-electoral crisis. President Alassane Ouattara and President Laurent Gbagbo were fighting. President Ouattara was the president elected, but President Gbagbo didn't want to leave power. In April 2011, finally, President Ouattara was installed, and we started a new era with a tremendous economic growth, as still today. The average is about 8 to 9%. In 2012, we had almost 12% growth. And we increase the business climate, construction of infrastructures and so on. The country is changing drastically. But in 1960, we were 3 million inhabitants in the entire Ivory Coast. Today, we are 24 million. So you see the growth of population, which is fast in Africa, and in 2050, the African continent will be by far the most populated continent on Earth. We are in the West African Monetary and Economic Zone, which is a franc zone with 8 countries, a single currency, single custom rate, and also a larger one with ECOWAS, which is the economic of West Africa, but including Nigeria, Ghana, and other English-speaking countries. Lately, the African Union signed the Continental Free Trade Agreement to have a free trade zone on the African continent. Most countries signed it, 44 countries out of 54, and we are going probably to increase trade within the continent. Despite our growth, we still have 49% of poverty rate, and the growth is considered not to be well distributed, and too many jobs are still fragile. And according to the World Bank, the foreign direct investment remains low. Many hurdles. The tax system is old. We have to renew it completely, and I'm advocating for it. The land issue is always, in sub-Saharan countries, a big issue. It is difficult to own land and to have a title. The bank rates are still high, too many red tapes, and we have, I have to admit, a strong corruption in our country, which is a real stop for development. I have to say, it's like many African countries and sub-Saharan African countries, Ivory Coast is a country with a strong potential. Young population, everything is to be done. We think of Africa today as the next frontier of growth, of development, of opportunities. But it won't happen overnight. We have to prepare ourselves for it. We have to train our population. We have, as Dr. Noor said, to implement policies for it. The continent is growing fast, and at the level of growth today, we produce about 40 million jobs when we have to produce more than 110 in the next 5 years. So if we do not create those jobs, if we do not have the policies and construct strong economies, it will make the difference between a big success and a major failure for the entire continent, countries by countries. Unfortunately, you see in the news all the young people trying to find answers to their dreams elsewhere than on the continent. And this is the challenge we have for the future. What we need is strong political will and I'm concluding. And the policy to invest and have a strong middle class on the continent. We can't have development if we don't have a strong middle class with a purchasing power able to sustain our own economy. It is good to work for foreign direct investment, but you cannot base your economy entirely on foreign direct investment. You need local investment and have this a local bourgeoisie on which you can rely for your development. This is the challenge that we have, and it will make the difference between a big nightmare or make the African dream that we want. Thank you very much.